The 67th general election in the history of the United Kingdom took place between 19th of August and 22nd of September 1901, after Parliament was dissolved by King Edward VII. This election is probably by far the most disputed general election in this country's history. Information about it is scarce, and some even question if it ever happened at all. To understand anything about this election though, we'd have to go back to the Succession to the Crown Act 1707. This basically established that whenever a sovereign passes away, abdicates, or for whatever other reason is not able to perform their duties as sovereign, causing the crown to be passed to their successor, Parliament would have to be dissolved within 6 months as a result. This was created at a time when Parliament was anxious to ensure the succession of a Protestant on the death of Queen Anne. Before this act was passed, Parliament would dissolve immediately upon the death of a monarch, but this act gave the Parliament breathing room to find a potential Protestant successor upon the death of Queen Anne, making it high treason for any of them to fail to do so. In summary, every monarch within the first 6 months of their reign had to dissolve Parliament, and this was the case for around 150 years. 1714 King George I, 1727 with George II, 1760 with George III, 1820 with George IV, 1830 William IV, and 1837 with Victoria. The Reform Act 1867, passed during Queen Victoria's reign, would abolish the rule of a new monarch having to dissolve Parliament within 6 months, ending that tradition. Or did it? You see, the Succession to the Crown Act 1707, even today, is still partly enforced in Great Britain, and this is where the confusion begins. Some MPs were scared about the potential consequences of not dissolving Parliament within the first 6 months of a new monarch's reign. You know, high treason and all. Other cabinet ministers were showing some skepticism at times, assured both MPs and the general public alike that there was nothing to worry about, and that Parliament could last a maximum of 7 years, regardless of the death of the sovereign. Luckily, they had plenty of time to sort this out, whether they knew it or not. Queen Victoria would go on to reign for 34 more years, as several prime ministers passed and tried to fix this weird legal loophole with no success. But D-Day eventually came. In the middle of the night, the Allies flew over the beaches of Normandy and started launching aerial attacks. Sorry, wrong script. Queen Victoria eventually died on 22nd of January 1901, the second longest reigning monarch in British history. Her son, Edward VII, took her place and assured everyone that he wouldn't be dissolving Parliament within the 6 months. But some MPs didn't believe him. You see, Edward lived most of his life as heir, waiting for his mother to die, so he could take the throne. As morbid as that sounds, it's true. In fact, he was 59 years old. During a large majority of his life, when he didn't have to worry about ruling the country, he gained a reputation as a playboy. In fact, as a young man, when he hoped to gain some military experience, he spent 3 nights with an actress named Nellie Clifton in Ireland in 1861. His father, Prince Albert, reprimanded Edward for this by the time he was in Cambridge, but he died just 2 weeks after the visit. Albert was growing ill anyway. Edward's mother, the Queen, was inconsolable and blamed Edward for his father's death. Her bitterness towards her eldest son never really faded away until her death decades later. All this to say, some people didn't take him seriously. It was a mix of his lack of authority, as well as confusion over laws that led some MPs to dissolve Parliament on their own 6 months after the death date of Queen Victoria if Edward didn't do it himself. Some of the more vocal MPs would include Edward James Saunderson, a prominent Irish Unionist politician, Joseph Chamberlain, the Liberal Unionist MP for Birmingham West, who was Secretary of State for the Colonies and the father of the future Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, and the Conservative MP for Bristol South, Walter Long. Fresh-faced Winston Churchill, the Conservative MP for Oldham, would also vocalise this plan. Some were worried that the current cabinet, which was being led by the Prime Minister, the Marquess of Salisbury, would clamp down on this as high treason, but in truth, no one really took them that seriously. Parliament was quote-unquote dissolved on 22nd of July 1901 after Edward VII failed to do so, and people started campaigning. Henry Petty Fitzmaurice, 5th Marquess of Lansdowne, would defect from his own cabinet, and would lead the quote-unquote separatist, conservative and liberal unionist party. Edwin and Montagu would lead the Liberal Party. They took themselves about as seriously as they could, advocating for their policies on taxes, social reforms, healthcare and wealth inequality. They even had their own debates, held in Wimbledon tennis court. Some say they might have actually played tennis together, but that's just mostly hearsay. Keir Hardie, the leader of the Labour Representation Committee, considered joining this breakaway election campaign, but eventually backed down, not wanting to hurt his chances of winning an actual general election. Fun fact, Winston Churchill performed a speech in Trafalgar Square advocating for the Conservative candidate, calling his policies based. This might be the first actual use of the term in a context that is common with slang today. The two breakaway parties actually managed to run in 78 constituencies all across the UK. And here are the results. It was also evenly split. The Conservatives managed to gain 39 seats, while the Liberals also gained 39 seats. Not only was there not a majority, there wasn't even a plurality. People feared this undermining the new system of this breakaway group, but Lansdowne and Montagu would team up, saying that they would lead a Conservative-Liberal coalition government in the, quote, name of democracy and the crown, end quote. Yeah. While no other parties won any seats, some independent candidates along with small fringe parties took part too. A Slavic man named Gatsu Leopold actually managed to gain just under 1,000 seats. He advocated for tea to be free to everyone at all times, universal suffrage, including for dogs, and the recognition of the socialist state of the Kamara in the Highlands. Unfortunately, the world wasn't ready for that yet. Anyway, did anything actually happen as a result of this election? Not really. Again, from the few sources I could find, I couldn't help but wonder that these MPs weren't actually serious about creating a breakaway rebellion government. They probably just wanted to pass time, maybe because they were just bored of being rich. Some of the more militant activists did end up getting arrested and put in jail after committing acts of vandalism and assault. But other than that, it didn't seem to change the status quo at all. In fact, people just probably wished they'd forget all this. And indeed they did. Nobody mentioned this mysterious 1901 election again. That was until 50 years later. Winston Churchill, one of the main voices of the breakaway group, became the Prime Minister for a second time after winning the 1951 general election. A reporter by the name of Lisa Cuddy asked Churchill if he regretted taking part in the so-called 1901 election. He responded with, "Onderi doderi doderi o doderi do,"